government. 2, explain the reasons for the prolonged delay in the disbursement of gratuity to these wards officers and provide timelines for the settling of the outstanding gratuity claims. And finally, state the measures being taken by the county government and address those delays and ensure timely disbursement of gratuity in the future. Signed, Senator Mohamed Chute, MP, Senator for Marsabit County.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to request for a statement on the operations of Vihiga County Public Service Board. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the operations of Vihiga County Public Service Board. Mr. Speaker, sir, Regulation 25(1)B of the Public Finance Management County Government Regulation 2015 caps county government expenditure on wages and benefits at 35% of the total county revenue. The Auditor General's report on the Vihiga County Executive for the years ended 30th June 2021 and 2022 raised concerns about the over-expenditure on wages by the Vihiga County government. These wage payments were processed through both the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Database, the so-called IPPD system, and manual payroll systems. The key issues identified in these reports include delays in assigning the unified payroll numbers to staff, recruitment into designations that do not align with the scheme of service or the IPPD system, and the employment of staff on short-term contract of less than 6 months. There are also allegations of nepotism in the officers serving in various offices in the county executive, which is perpetuated by this county service board, where they have employed their relatives. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, list all individuals employed by the Vihiga County Public Service Board, both on contract and permanent and pensionable terms from the financial year 2021-2022 to date, indicating their position, department, county or sub-county of residence. Number 2, provide a breakdown of individuals who have been converted from contract terms to permanent and pensionable status, stating whether the due process was followed in each case. Number 3, provide the needs assessment reports, job advertisements, interview analysis sheets, employment agreements or contracts, and all related documentation for the officers employed from the financial year 2021-2022 to date. Number 4, explain the reasons for the continued over-employment by the County Public Service Board despite concerns raised in the Auditor General's report and the Controller of Budget reports about over-expenditure on wages and salaries. Number 5, provide copies of resolutions from the County Assembly of Vihiga that have halted various employment activities due to the high wage bill and include recommendations from the Office of the Auditor General and the Control of Budget. And lastly, inquire into allegation of nepotism within the County Public Service Board, senior county officials, and the recruitment and promotion of staff within the executive, and state the actions taken to address the recurring audit concerns regarding overemployment and ethnic imbalance in Vihiga County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fernandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the indulgence. Statement on an issue. Chemngetich shattering women marathon world record and super performance of the Kenyan team at the Chicago Marathon on Sunday, 13 October 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52-1 to make a statement on issue of general topical concern and national importance, namely Ruth Chemngetich incredible performance in shattering the women's marathon world record and the overall super performance of the Kenyan team at Chicago Marathon on Sunday, 13 October 2024. Once again, Mr. Speaker, sir, our athletes have brought glory to our country. Ruth Chemngetich broke the women's marathon world record at the same event where the late legend Kevin Kiptum set the men's marathon world record last year in Chicago. So, Speaker, sir, and he ran under 2 hours, Mr. Speaker, the late Kevin Kiptum. So, Speaker, sir, Ruth Chemngetich has become the first Kenyan woman athlete to break the 2 hours, 10 minutes barrier in marathon running. She set the new women's world record at 2 hours, 9 minutes and 56 seconds, a gap of almost 2 minutes over the previous records of 2 hours, 11 minutes and 53 seconds, set by Ethiopia's Gitse Aseva at the 2023 Berlin Marathon. This victory also marked Chemngetich's third consecutive win at the Chicago Marathon in one of the premier marathons across the world. Mr. Speaker, sir, this year's Chicago Marathon was also a time for remembrance. The organizers respectfully observed a moment of silence at the starting line to honor the late maestro legend Kevin Kiptum, the men's marathon world record holder. We appreciate the Ruth Chemngetich for dedicating her win and record to Kevin Kiptum also. May his soul continue to rest in peace. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the men's marathon, John Korir brought further glory to our country, winning with a personal best of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 04 seconds, the second fastest time ever recorded in Chicago. He was followed by Ethiopia's Mohamed Essa, who finished 2 hours, 4 minutes and 39 seconds, and our own, who is also my very good friend and my neighbor, Amos Kipruto, in third, and this is the source of champions, Nandi County, at 2 hours, 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Other Kenyans, Vincent Kimngetich and Daniel Ebenyo, also finished strongly. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is disheartening to witness a section of the media across the world castigating unwarranted doubts and aspersions on our athletes, questioning their integrity and accusing them of doping without following due process. These are established standards and procedures, including anti-doping tests conducted before and after major competitions. Mr. Speaker, sir, Ruth Chemngetich's consistent performance, winning the Chicago Marathon 3 times in a row, is a statement of her dedication, resilience, and passion for the sport. The harassment she received from media, especially Western media and some individual outlets, after breaking the world record should be condemned in the strongest terms possible. And we expect the government of Kenya, including Ministry of Sports and Athletics Kenya, to do the same. Instead of being vilified, she should be celebrated for hard-earned victory and consistency over the years. We expect also to listen to women's voice on this matter. Mr. Speaker, sir, I call upon the Ministry of Sports, Athletics Kenya, National Olympic Committee, NOC, to issue a strong rebuttal and defend the integrity of our athletes from such baseless media accusation. Furthermore, I urge Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, ADAC, to intensify its vigilance, eradicate rogue agents, and coaches who tarnish our athletes' careers and the name of athletics by encouraging doping, sometimes unknowingly. I also call upon our athletes to remain clean and report any suspicious individuals or activities in their training camps, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, sir, Athletics Kenya, like any other federations, must hold elections for its officials to bring in fresh leadership and professionalism, promoting transparency and accountability. Similarly, I urge the Football Kenya Federation Election Board, which the campaigns are ongoing, to conduct its election. And my friend, one of my friends is running, is called Alila. Elections according to its constitution and in adherence to Kenyan laws without hiding behind the FIFA statutes. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, I congratulate our athletes for their outstanding performance at the Chicago Marathon and other major global marathons that happened in the weekend. I also commend Kenya's rising football stars, our starlets, the under-20 team, for qualifying for 2025 under-20 African Cup of Nations. And I don't know whether Bunge football team will qualify all the same, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, I extend my best wishes to junior starlets who are currently participating in the FIFA under-17 Women's World Cup in Dominican Republic. We assure them of our unwavering commitment and support as they continue representing our nation on the global stage and in the sports arena. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Next order.
Order number 8, motion, consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024. Resumption of debate interrupted on Tuesday, 22nd October 2024. Voting.
Clerk, do you have the requisite quorum?
Yes,
We do. Thank you. Now, honorable senators, I will now proceed to put the question that the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024, be now considered. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Honorable senators, I'm going to put the question. I'm going to put the question because clearly most of the senators were not following this. Okay? Now, we have concluded debate. That is the consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024. Okay? Honorable senators, I hope it's clear to you what the question is all about. Is it clear to you? Now, I will allow the majority leader who moved this petition to explain before I put the question so that we make the right decision.
Mr. Speaker, this is a fairly straightforward matter, which I wish my colleagues to understand. It's not my report, actually. It's Senator Ali Roberts and Senator Faki. Actually, it's you, Senator Faki, who should be explaining. And no, I don't see any other member. Oh, and Senator Alwale and Eddie is members of Budget and Finance Committee. What they did is that they rejected the amendments of the National Assembly. That's what is in our report. So what you are voting for, when you vote yes, you are agreeing with the rejection by our committee. If you vote nay, it means you don't agree. That's why I want to plead with colleagues that we agree with the amendments, with the report of our Budget and Finance Committee, which is rejecting the National Assembly.
It's procedural. Yes, Majority Leader. Order, Honorable Senators. Senator Mazayo,
Sorry.
Senator Fokilifi. Have your seat. Yes, Majority Leader.
Okay, yeah. Mr. Speaker, having seen how the question that you put is framed, then the advice to the House, because the question is, what is in question is not the report of the committee, it is the amendments of the Assembly. Therefore, we reject them. We vote no, then that takes us to mediation.
So, Honorable Senators, I will now put the question that the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024, be now considered. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The nays have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bills number 34 of 2022. Resumption of debate interrupted on Tuesday, 22nd October 2024.
At interruption of the debate on Tuesday, 22nd, the Honorable Senator Fernandi was on his feet and had a balance of 10 minutes. You may proceed, Senator Cherokee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I was on clause number 19, and I want to continue to thank your office, Mr. Speaker, for the support through the Secretariat and also our colleagues in the National Assembly on this mediation version of the Sugar Bill of 2024. I think I want to assure farmers across, especially our sugarcane growing farmers from Migori, from Kwale, from Nandi, from Kericho, from Kakamega, from Busia, Kisumu, and wherever they are, including Trans Nzoia, Mr. Speaker, that their interest, this is a farmers-based interest mediation version of the bill on sugar bill. And I want to thank also the majority leader and minority leader for ensuring that we got nominated to the mediation committee. And we shall not forget their favor, Mr. Speaker, before the eyes of the Lord. Mr. Speaker, in clause number 19, we did agree that a miller shall not purchase sugar crop from or accept sugar crop delivered by a grower, and a grower shall not sell or deliver sugar crop to a miller unless the grower is registered or has a forced valid supply agreement with the miller. The reasoning, Mr. Speaker, one of the reason is that you find most of the sugar companies, they don't do what we call cane development. So we are protecting from what we call cane poaching, where a factory develops sugar of a particular farmer, but because of sugar pricing and prevailing factors, they might end up encouraging what we call cane poaching. And you find if a factory X has developed cane development maybe in Viga or in Nandi or in Kericho, they will not have raw material. That factory ends up closing because of cane poaching, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, whenever there is a cane development by a particular farmer, there must be an agreement between the miller and the grower to ensure that we avoid what we call cane poaching. And we did, Mr. Speaker, substitute the zoning into sugar catchment area. The definition of sugar catchment area in clause number 2 on sugar bill amended version of the mediated is we are saying sugar catchment area will be used for purposes of cane development. Cane development members and colleague senators through the speaker will mean processing, researching, delivery, growing, and others. And also for purposes of elections to Kenya Sugar Board. And those cluster areas, Mr. Speaker, for example, we did, in our schedule, we did provide how it will look like, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be sharing in members in minds before I close these remarks. Mr. Speaker, another one is within the sugar growing area that they can deliver. And also, if, for example, sugar factories are doing maintenance, be it Chemelil, Moroni, West Kenya, Butali, West Valley, Mr. Speaker, Kibos, Naitiri, among other areas, when they are doing sugar maintenance closing, the Kenya Sugar Board shall give them an approval to deliver their sugar when it is mature and ready to another sugar catchment area where they can deliver. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this one is very important, that clause number 19, that will ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we did agree to ensure that we protect farmers and protect both millers and sugar growing or sugar farmers. Mr. Speaker, one of the critical issues also I want to bring to the attention is also we did the issue of nomination to Kenya Research Institute. We have agreed that universities will nominate members to the board with extensive sugar research so that our farmers continue to benefit from extension services. The sugar number 3, we have agreed on the issue of cess. On the issue of sugar cess in clause number 38, we did amend. You remember, members of National Assembly wanted around 4 billion that will go to Kenya Sugar Board to go to KERA. We said KERA and KURA, up to as at now, they are not constitutional bodies, Mr. Speaker, and that there is a matter in court that I don't want to delve. That is why we say that money should remain with Kenya Sugar Board in consultation with farmers, Mr. Speaker. 2 weeks ago, I was in Masab. Masab sub-county in Nandi County is growing more sugarcane. I was trying to use a road between Kabiemit through Lolgeringe to Kamamud, Mr. Speaker, in Kabiet. The road is impassable. Yet tractors are destroying that are carrying. County government of Nandi has been given millions and millions of shillings through sugar sales, Mr. Speaker. Either by Kibos, by Moroni, by West Kenya, by West Valley, the newest factory from Kericho. But there is nothing to smile about, Mr. Speaker. You come to Taunet, all the way these areas, Mr. Speaker, including Kapkulumben, all the way to Mombwa, the neighbor to Aaron Cheruiyot, the roads are impassable. Yet there is a lot of money that is paid through cess. Mr. Speaker, in the wisdom of the committee which you appointed, we thought the cess should go back to Kenya Sugar Board so that they can assist in maintenance of infrastructure. In fact, the definition members, we did not say only roads. We said, and including Homa Bay, we said that bridges, ensure maraming, ensure grading, and access so that farmers, including in Kakamega County, when we are taking to either Butali or to either Mumias, Mr. Speaker, that the roads are well maintained. And therefore, I want to inform the House that money will never go to KERA because members of National Assembly had an opportunity of taking advantage of the 40% that normally goes to KERA, Mr. Speaker. Number 4, Mr. Speaker, is on the issue of appointing boards to the private factories, Mr. Speaker, and we are against it. Under the Companies Act, Mr. Speaker, under the Companies Act, Mr. Speaker, you know very well that you cannot have an outsider sitting in a private company. And therefore, we did reject to have a farmer or anybody to sit in a private company's board because it is against the Companies Act, it is against best business practices, Mr. Speaker, which is we did agree and we did delete, Mr. Speaker. We did introduce the clause number 19, just to rectify something, Mr. Speaker, is that we did introduce clause number 19A, and I think members should listen to this very carefully. And we did say a grower may deliver cane outside the sugar cane zone or catchment area, provided that the grower I had explained, Mr. Speaker, and I think this one is still. So we are substituting the sugar zone to sugar catchment area to mean, and I think Kwale, is it Kilifi clause, it's part of the catchment, and I'm happy the senator who was our host over the weekend is in the House, Senator Isa Juma, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I think Kilifi and Kwale should be the biggest beneficiary in that region. Mr. Speaker, with another miller, may enter into a contract of cane supply with another miller if the mill is located within the same sugar cane. And I think it is still similar issue, Mr. Speaker. In the issue of new schedule, and it is important because farmers from Kericho and Nandi, and at that time they made the Agriculture Committee in my presence and majority leader, we did agree that we are going to come up with ensure, zoning. Mr. Speaker, largely, if you read the Oparanya report, this sugar bill we have borrowed largely from the Oparanya report. For us who come from Western region, that report is what we borrowed heavily. And even when we worked across, Mr. Speaker, when we did public participation across the country, Mr. Speaker, we realized that the farmers were proposing in line with the Oparanya report, Governor Oparanya report, in the last session, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we came up with the sugar catchment areas, Mr. Speaker, where we were proposing in the sugar catchment. And I've said sugar catchment areas will be for cane development, and Mr. Speaker, will be for the purposes of elections to Kenya Sugar Board. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, I know farmers will ask, for example, Nandi will be part of the central region, When you come to this other part, it will be in this other part. We are proposing that election to board, directors to Kenya Sugar Board must be rotational. Finally, Speaker, on the new schedule on sugar catchment areas, Central will cater for Kisumu, Southern Nandi, and Kericho. You remember in Nandi, we don't have any milling sugar factory. So we rely on Kibos, Moroni, Chemelil, we rely on West Kenya, and we rely on West Valley in Kericho County. On Upper Western, we'll have Bungoma, Kakamega, excluding Mumias area, Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, and Northern Nandi. For us in Northern Nandi, Naitiri, and Butali will be nearer. On Lower Western, we'll have Mumias, Busia, and Siaya. On Southern sugar catchment area, we'll have Migori, Homa Bay, Kisii, and Narok. And in Coastal, we'll have Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu. Those were proposed catchment areas that we hope our farmers will be comfortable with, because, Mr. Speaker, you go into a county, they don't have a factory. For example, Nandi, we don't have a sugar milling factory. We only depend in Kakamega, Naitiri, and Butali. When you come to other side, we depend with West Valley, Kibos, Chemelil, Moroni, and West Kenya to deliver our cane and ensuring. Mr. Speaker, largely looking at this report, I want to ask my colleagues, let us support this mediated version of sugar bill for the benefit of our sugar farmers. Mr. Speaker, I have seen Senator Sifuna, he had proposed something about sugar development levy fund. As a committee, we thought it wise that we introduce tax, but will be managed by finance bill, because finance bill will be introduced regularly in financial year. The reason we want to introduce sugar development levy fund is also to cushion and encourage our local milling factories to ensure that we take care of industrial sugar. I know the argument will be, if that industrial sugar will be levied, they must transfer taxes to confectionaries like biscuits and other that is used in industrial sugar processing. But I think it was wise to cushion, because we should also look at inward. We should look inward. Like the way Donald Trump is saying, let's make America great. And you remember, he denied business to China at the expense of America. So I want to encourage the House, let us protect our local sugar factories. That issue of sugar development levy fund, Mr. Speaker, we wanted to zero rate, but out of the wisdom, we decide to introduce at least the minimum taxes, Mr. Speaker. And I hope the manufacturers or the importers of industrial sugar will not transfer that weight to the consumers of confectionaries and mothers. Mr. Speaker, looking at this is the best we could do. I hope by the end of this year, the His Excellency, the President should assent. I call upon my Greens, let us agree. Our sugarcane farmers are waiting. The one for coffee will come. The one for milk will come. The one for tea will come, Mr. Speaker. Let us assist our farmers. Our farmers are waiting. The sugarcane farmers, this is their redemption, Mr. Speaker. This is the right time to do these sugar sector reforms for the benefit, Mr. Speaker, and kill this animal called AFA. We need to have our own directorate of sugar. The AFA one has killed most of the crops, so that even coffee, they can have their own directorate, sugar can have their own directorate. We have T-Board, Kenya T-Board Authority. We now have many under, Mr. Speaker, even the one in Coast, nuts, even the mang bills, and many others, Mr. Speaker, so that farmers can be handled as best as their crop. Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, allow me to say to support this mediated version of the bill and call upon colleagues to support, so that we can expeditiously be dispensed off with and allow farmers to go back to the business of tilling and ensuring that we have enough sugar, Mr. Speaker, so that sugar is very critical. You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm so used to sugar nowadays. You know, there are sugar barons, there are sugar daddies, there are sugar mummies, and that is life. With any remarks, I support, Mr. Speaker.
It's Senator Sifuna.
Sugar Senator.
Honorable Speaker, I really didn't want to interrupt the Senator for Nandi, but I didn't quite get what he said about how the committee dealt with my amendment, because when I read the report at page 10, it says the committee unanimously rejected the proposal to exempt industrial sugar from the sugar development levy, saying that there is no justification to exempt only imported industrial sugar from paying the sugar development levy, while all other imported sugar is subjected to the levy. Honorable Speaker, honestly, I have to express my disappointment with the mediation committee, because I am in the unique position where I am the senator of the city of Nairobi, but I'm also a sugarcane farmer. That unique position allows me to have perspective of the various interests that we were trying to protect, unlike my colleagues from upcountry, whose perspective was limited, in my view, and very respectfully submit to the perspective of the farmer and the local sugar industries. Honorable Speaker, I took time to have a meeting with the mediation committee, at least our representatives from the Senate. The people who are members of this mediation committee are people that are known personally to me. I consider them my friends. The Honorable Peter Masara, who will be hosting me as his SG in his constituency on Saturday, Honorable Speaker. Senator Richard Onyonka, the Honorable Walter Awino, Member of Parliament for Awendo, is a personal friend. And of course, my mother's Member of Parliament, the Honorable John Makali, Member of Parliament for Kandui constituency. Honorable Speaker, I have even more friends on this committee, including the Member of Parliament for Lugari, the Honorable Nabi Nabwera, who I know is very passionate about these things. What I try to persuade them, Honorable Speaker, to see is that there has to be a distinction in the way in which we treat imported regular table sugar and imported industrial sugar. When we are talking about protecting our farmers, the threat is not caused or does not originate from industrial sugar. In fact, Honorable Speaker, it is foolhardy to say that you're protecting local industries when you apply this levy to industrial sugar, knowing very well that in Kenya today, there is no single industry that produces white industrial sugar. So I was hoping that a distinction would be made because, Honorable Speaker, as a senator for Nairobi, the industries that we are talking about account for 60% of all employment of the people of Nairobi. These are big stakeholders for city senators such as myself. If there is no local production of a commodity, you cannot claim to protect local industry when that local industry does not exist. In fact, I pleaded with the mediation committee that they even allow a time frame, like it can be a sunset clause that immediately the country is able to produce or to have capacity to produce white industrial sugar, then maybe we can introduce this levy. Honorable Speaker, this white industrial sugar, the reason why I was seeking that exemption is that it is used in just about everything that we consume here in Nairobi and across the country. It is used in baked goods, confectionaries, that is sweets, juices, sodas, and beer, Honorable Speaker. And over the period of time that we have seen, although the Senator for Nandi was pleading that the industry should not pass this cost, I can assure you that no manufacturer is going to take this cost upon themselves. You are going to see a rise in the cost of these basic commodities that I thought we would try and cushion Kenyans, especially because, Honorable Speaker, we are still discussing the high cost of living. There has to be that balance. And when I appeared before the members of the Senate who are members of this committee, I thought that I had provided that justification, that we needed that exemption just to protect industry. I am also aware that if you look at both manifestos of the Azimio coalition and the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza government, we leaned heavy on industrialization, that it was a desire of both of these coalitions to put in place policies that encourage investment. Honorable Speaker, over the period of time that I have been a senator here, the past 2 financial years, because of multiple increases in taxation, you speak to many of these factories, they will tell you their sales have dropped. They have experienced drops in sales because of incessant increases of prices due to new taxation every financial year. And I suspect that this is also going to put the pressure further on these manufacturers because, Honorable Speaker, it is going to increase the cost of production. When the cost of production increases, and then we see higher prices for these commodities, we will see lower sales, which directly translate to shrinking employment in terms of the number of people that can be hired. Factories in Nairobi here, Honorable Speaker, that have closed down entire production lines because they can no longer manage to sustain the cost of wages in those factories. So, Honorable Speaker, whereas I supported wholeheartedly the sugar bill, especially from the perspective of the farmer, I had hoped that at least on this particular single issue, the committee would have accommodated the manufacturers as well, so that as we encourage and develop our capacity to produce this commodity locally, then there is really no need for us to lump this together. I had a conversation, Honorable Speaker, with the Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, who's my neighbor up country, and also a friend, and was the chair of this committee. And his explanation is that there have been instances within the industry where people actually import regular sugar under the guise of industrial sugar. And my argument to him then was that, yes, in just about every endeavor in this country, there are people who will try to be clever and circumvent rules and so on and so forth, but it should not be a cause to mete out punishment on the entire industry. So let it be what it is. I am hoping that the members of the committee who have not spoken will be a little bit clearer than the Senator of Nandi, about what he was saying the committee was proposing to do with industrial sugar in light of the matters that I have raised, Honorable Speaker. I don't know if he meant that when the next finance bill is brought up, that there will be an exemption, or that I really didn't get the reasoning of the committee, and I'm hoping that somebody will clear that up for me. Other than that, Honorable Speaker, I am in full support of all the other amendments, because these are proposals that we supported here on the floor during debate on the actual bill, and I'm hoping that it will now go to assuage the situation on the ground. I can also confirm, Honorable Speaker, that the roads, especially around my rural home, are in a terrible state, Honorable Speaker, and we're hoping that once this levy, now that you have decided that you must take it, Honorable Senator Cherargei, we will be seeing an improvement in the county roads because they will be having resources to be able to repair and maintain these roads. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I thank you and I support.
Senator Issa.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa fursa hii na mimi niweze kuchangia. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi kama seneta wa jimbo la kaunti ya Kwale, kwa niaba ya watu wa Kwale, mimi naunga mkono hii sugar bill, kwa sababu hii bill, kusema la kweli, kama sasa kule kwetu Ramisi kuna matatizo mengi sana, hasa kwenye kile kiwanda cha Ramisi. Hivi sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, hivi karibuni tulikuwa na tatizo kwamba wafanyaji kazi katika lile kiwanda waligoma kwa sababu usimamizi mbaya wa kile kiwanda. Wafanyaji kazi wana karibu miezi 5, miezi 6 hawajapata mishahara. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii bill itakapokuwa tumepitisha sawa sawa, regulation nyingi ambazo katika nchi hii zitaweza kusimamiwa vizuri, kwa sababu kuna watu wengine wanaleta sukari ndani ya nchi kutoka nchi za nje, sukari za rahisi sana, ambapo sukari zetu katika nchi yetu ya Kenya huwa hazina bei, hazina thamani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo mimi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kama alivyosema Senator wa Cherargei, mimi namunga mkono. Senator Sifuna alivyozungumza namunga mkono kwa yale marekebisho ambayo atakafanyika. Na hii sekta sukari, Mheshimiwa Spika, tuna shida nyingi sana, especially kama kule sehemu ya Kwale hivi sasa. Hata juzi karibuni pia nilisema katika mkutano, kama huyu mwekezaji wa sukari ameshindwa na hichi kiwanda, basi kujie mwekezaji mwingine ambaye ataweza kuendesha kile kiwanda, wananchi wapate manufaa. Kwa sababu sahihi kile unavyosikia, baada ya miezi 2, miezi 3 unasikia kuna mgomo, ni kwa sababu ya usimamizi mbaya. Kwa hivyo hii bili mimi naunga mkono sana, kisha sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa haya machache, asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Eddie.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute on this report on the sugar bill. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I indeed sought a quorum problem so that I could be able to ensure that many people, as many senators as possible, can be able to contribute on this bill today. Because I think it's the most important bill that you can support this year, Mr. Speaker. I think that in every home here, Mr. Speaker, there is a cup of tea waiting for people in the morning or in the evening. Whether you're taking your tea with milk, like my friend, Senator Redama Olekina, who cannot do his tea without milk, or whether you like just strong tea, like my friend, Senator Arun Cheriot, who is trying to keep up good weight to play for us in Yala, It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you want to try and have some sugar in it. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the development of the sugarcane industry is a very, very important one. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why I want to support this report in the form that it is in right now, Mr. Speaker, is because there are a number of clauses that have really, really impressed me in the different sections of the bills the bill that has come as mediated, Mr. Speaker, and particularly because for the first time, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing a bill that in the sugarcane industry is actually farmer-centric, that is trying to solve as many problems of the farmer as possible, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the first thought that I had today was to actually celebrate the bill in general with my friend Martin Dima. Martin Dima is the current MD of Sony Sugar, which is a signature industry in the part of the region where I come from. And Sony Sugar is one of the iconic sugar industries and millers that have given a lot of hope to our people in Migori County and in the larger Southern Nyanza region. And I think that this will also be celebrated by Jared Kopio, Mr. Speaker, who is the chairperson of the same industry, given the challenges that farmers in Migori County have faced, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also must pride in the fact that Section 3 and Section 4, Mr. Speaker, of this bill seek to rethink the entire Kenya Sugar Board. Mr. Speaker, perhaps I should also share with you that one of the longest-serving Kenya Sugar Board directors who used to represent farmers and then rose very quickly to be a chairman of the board used to be the former governor of Migori County, Governor Okoth-Obado. And Governor Okoth-Obado actually worked very hard during this time in the Kenya Sugar Board to be able to establish private millers, particularly the private millers in Homa Bay, that is Ndiwa, the Sukari industry, as well as in the Transmara region, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why I celebrate this section of the bill is because by rethinking this Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker, there is a very keen and deliberate effort by the two committees, the committees from the Senate and the committee from the National Assembly, to try and make Kenya Sugar Board be able to make sugar industry commercially viable. Why do I say this, Mr. Speaker? Because for the first time, we are seeing the regulation, development, and promotion of the industry being a function of a board. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we have seen a proposal that this board is also going to coordinate the activities of the value chain actors in the industry. There is nothing that can make the sugar industry as economically and commercially viable as being able to coordinate the activities of value chain actors, Mr. Speaker, because sometimes these value chain actors, for instance, if you think about the Jaggery millers, Mr. Speaker, when left to no regulation, to no development, to no promotion, Mr. Speaker, then they cannot be able to make a sense of commercial viability of running good industries. This sugar board also is going to make sure that it facilitates equitable access to benefits to farmers from government. And I'll elaborate on that when I look at some of the proposals in terms of benefit that will come from government to the farmers and as well as the millers, Mr. Speaker. I'm also seeing, Mr. Speaker, that this bill under Section 4 establishes one role of the Kenya Sugar Board as establishing linkages with government agencies and research institutions. For the first time, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing a Kenya Sugar Board proposed to be able to enable farmers to do scientific approach to cane farming, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I'm also seeing that the board will be able to monitor any distortion in the sugar market. I know my brother, Senator Sifuna, was very keen on the levy that he was talking about, the importation of refined sugar, Mr. Speaker. But sometimes, Mr. Speaker, importation can cause a lot of distortion in the market, and we see that Kenya Sugar Board can be able to regulate that, Mr. Speaker. The most juicy part of this, Mr. Speaker, is that for the first time, Kenya Sugar Board will work alongside Kenya Sugar Research and Training Institute under Section 28, 2AB, where Kenya Sugar Research and Training Institute will play an advisory role to the Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker. We remember that the defunct Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker, did not have proper scientific basis of being able to develop the industry, Mr. Speaker. I also celebrate the fact that the board has been mandated under Section 33, Mr. Speaker, to establish sugar industry inspectors. Mr. Speaker, this is wonderful. Because if you think about some of the bedeviling problems in the sugar industry that are affecting farmers, Mr. Speaker, is the disconnect between the Kenya Sugar Board and farmers' plight at the inspection level of the entire value chain. For instance, Mr. Speaker, this bill establishes the crop inspector. What kind of sugarcane, what kind of seed cane should a farmer be able to plant? Number two, Mr. Speaker, there is an establishment of factory inspector, Mr. Speaker. One of the problems that farmers face in places like Migori and the southern Nyanza region is that you harvest your cane, take it to the factory, and then when you get to the factory, you are hoping that your cane is weighing so well. Then at the factory, there is weighing machines that have already been doctored in a way that you cannot be able to make the best out of your sugar cane. So, Mr. Speaker, a factory inspector should be able to deal with the problem of farmers in terms of weighing to make sure that they're getting proper payment for their cane, Mr. Speaker. There's also warehouse and transportation inspector, Mr. Speaker, that has been established under Section 33. And, Mr. Speaker, this is also fantastic because one of the biggest problems that the sugarcane growers are facing is the fact that things like tractors, Mr. Speaker, have caused a lot of accidents in regions where sugarcane farmers are coming from, because there's no inspector to look at the entire warehouse and transportation chain for sugarcane growers, Mr. Speaker, such that sometimes in places like Migori, Homa Bay, Muhoroni, you will find that at night when people are traveling, Mr. Speaker, you find tractors that have been left by different millers on the road because they are in pathetic condition and therefore ending up claiming a lot of lives, Mr. Speaker. So it is wonderful that we are going to have an inspector who can be able to look at that entire chain, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, close to this is Section 38 of this bill, Mr. Speaker, that has talked broadly about sugarcane development levy that is tied together with Section 39 that end up establishing the Sugarcane Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, this fund used to be in the defunct Sugarcane Board, but it was not broadened enough to be able to help the plight of farmers. And, Mr. Speaker, this one establishes some ways of being able to support farmers when they have planted their sugarcane and they've got contract with millers. And after that, Mr. Speaker, you can be able to benefit in different ways. For instance, Mr. Speaker, I would be happy when Migori farmers are able to get funds in terms of bonuses and loans from different millers where this levy, or rather this sugarcane development levy and sugarcane development fund can be able to allow millers to give them some bonuses and loans. If you think about it, Mr. Speaker, some of these problems that we have for farmers is that sugarcane can take up to 18 months to mature. Between that time, the farmer will have spent so much time in the farm, yet, Mr. Speaker, they have problems with school fee. Sometimes they have got medical problems that sometimes need a lot of money, and sometimes it's so difficult for them to get loans in traditional banks or any other source of financing. If this fund is made to function, Mr. Speaker, they can now go to their millers and even seek for vouchers to be able to take their kids to school as they wait for harvesting, so that at the end of the day when they harvest, they can be able to pay back when they're cut in the price and cost of, in the price and benefit they will get once they sell their sugarcane, Mr. Speaker. There is also a very important function that this will help with, which is what I've seen in Migori County, particularly in Awendo areas and Rapogi areas, where farmers sometimes are forced to cut their sugarcane early and harvest them, then sell them to jaggery millers, Mr. Speaker, because they don't have money. That will allow farmers, this fund will now allow farmers to wait until their sugarcane mature well and be able to give them the best returns. And, Mr. Speaker, lastly on this sugar Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, the hardest part of sugarcane is developing seed cane. Currently in the sugar industry, Mr. Speaker, seed cane is being developed by Calro. And you know that Calro is taxed with many other seed development, Mr. Speaker. We don't have an industry-specific function in terms of helping with seed cane development, Mr. Speaker. This fund, combined with Section 28 and 27 that establishes Kenya Sugar Research and Training Institute, will enable for the first time the sugar industry to be able to develop seed cane for farmers that will be able to make farmers have the best seeds possible. So this is a very laudable section of this bill. And Mr. Speaker, I think that one of the areas that regulations that will be furthered from this bill should look at is the problem of leasing in a more broad way to combine with this idea of the Sugar Development Fund. Because, Mr. Speaker, the idea of forcing millers to lease their milling, their milling facilities, Mr. Speaker, is because there's a number of problems that do come about when there's no proper management, Mr. Speaker. And I think that this fund will help us solve that problem. Because, Mr. Speaker, for you to have a good miller, they use what we call efficiency ratio, Mr. Speaker. The efficiency ratio, Mr. Speaker, is whereby if you put 10 tons of canes and try to crush it as a miller, Mr. Speaker, you must be able to get 1 ton of sugar, Mr. Speaker. That's not a management problem. That's an efficiency problem, Mr. Speaker, that you should not force millers to lease their facilities just because of a management problem, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, another problem that is facing millers with regards to these leasing problems is the issue of pricing. Because the issue of pricing, Mr. Speaker, has always been left to importation distortion of sugar, Mr. Speaker. But the good thing about this bill, Mr. Speaker, is that for the first time, it has established Sugar Research and Training Institute that will be able to help us think about technologies that can be able to think about sucrose content of cane, Mr. Speaker. I think that if this bill goes through, Mr. Speaker, going forward, the sugar industry should not use importation and price of sugar as the price of cane, but should use sucrose content as the tool for being able to price cane for farmers, Mr. Speaker. If you are a farmer from one farm and have got good sucrose content, Mr. Speaker, you should be able to earn more than a farmer who has got less sucrose content, Mr. Speaker. This will deal with the duality problem of the leasing problem because of inefficiency of sugarcane industries, and also, Mr. Speaker, it will help to deal with the general issue of pricing of the cane, the cane prices for farmers, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to laud the fact that this bill has also been able to propose, say, a tribunal to deal with disputes in the industry, Mr. Speaker, the sugarcane industry, Mr. Speaker, under Section 44. Mr. Speaker, the number of disputes that we are seeing in the sugarcane industry, Mr. Speaker, are so many that cannot be left to only functions of other places like courts to deal with, Mr. Speaker. So establishing this tribunal will be able to help farmers where they have got problems with farmers, farmers where they have got problems with millers, millers where they have got problems with millers, Mr. Speaker. Currently, Mr. Speaker, you would know that the issue of disputes is generally being dealt with by Agriculture and Food Authority, Mr. Speaker. But the problem with Agriculture and Food Authority, Mr. Speaker, is that it doesn't have any teeth to bite, Mr. Speaker. But the way this tribunal is structured, Mr. Speaker, it will be able to deal with any overarching issues that might need a tribunal to bite. For instance, Mr. Speaker, the issue of poaching of sugarcane is a major issue, whether you are within the zones that have been prescribed here or without the zones, Mr. Speaker. You'll find that a farmer has entered a contract with one miller, and after entering a contract with one miller, because of pressure of finances, they end up selling their cane to a different miller who they are not within their outgrower schemes, Mr. Speaker.
This tribunal will be able to deal with those kind of sugarcane poaching and discipline millers so that millers can be able to develop their own outgrower schemes and make sure that there is sanity for a free market economy in the sugar industry. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is a very good bill, and also a very good report that I want to appreciate all the members of that committee that came up with this report, and I hope that we'll fast track the passing of this bill so that the sugarcane farmers in the country can be able to benefit from such a wonderful piece of legislation. Therefore, I support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to really thank you for giving me a chance to also make my comments on this mediated version of the sugar bill. Mr. Speaker, may I congratulate the mediation committee for the wonderful work they have done. Mr. Speaker, this bill has come through both houses. We had our own disagreements, and now we have a version which we can work with. Mr. Speaker, I know that still the Senator of Nairobi has raised another issue there, which was not accommodated in the mediated version, but I still believe that he supported, as I listened, the rest of the clauses that were agreed upon. And maybe, Mr. Speaker, we'll need also to find a way to deal with a situation where some really important issues are left out. But on the whole, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very good beginning towards implementation of the sugar bill. And we will not debate the sugar bill afresh, but support the recommendations of this report. And Mr. Speaker, one of the most critical, in fact, the only issue I would like to, because I've debated this bill before, but the one thing that I loved in this mediated version is the committee observation in chapter 3. It said, having considered the clauses of the sugar bill, and they named that sugar bill, the committee observed the sugar catchment areas which cover a number of counties. And they said Central covers these counties, Southern covers these counties, and they go on. Lower Western covers Mumias, Busia, Siaya, and so on. And then they go to coastal area, the sugar catchment coastal area that covers Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu counties, which the committee observed will be used for election of representatives of growers in the Kenya Sugar Board. Because, Mr. Speaker, if this wasn't done, the committee said there is a possibility that counties with many growers may get slots in the board perpetually. So, Mr. Speaker, what was the committee's recommendation? Committee's recommendation was that, having observed the above recommendation, they said that the cabinet secretary should put in place regulations after enactment of the bill, providing that the board positions will be rotational among the different counties in the catchment areas to ensure that each county gets a chance to be represented in the sugar board. Mr. Speaker, what this mediated version is telling the country is that now in the sugar board, there will be opportunity for counties that may not be producing as much, but also produce sugar. Counties like Kwale, Tana River, counties like Lamu, they produce sugar. But Mr. Speaker, every time the question of sugar is discussed, it's like the coast sugar catchment area is not considered. It's like we are non-existent, and yet we do produce sugar. In fact, Mr. Speaker, in Tana River County in Tana Delta, when they did the first tests, they found that we are able to do 2 crops of sugar in 1 year because of our climatic conditions, which are very good, and the kind of sucrose content that our sugarcane produces is high quality, Mr. Speaker. Our conditions are similar to the ones in Mauritius, and everybody knows that one of the countries that produces extremely good quality sugar is Mauritius. In fact, its economy is dependent on sugar production and clothing and tourism. So, Mr. Speaker, going back to the point, I'm saying that this particular report seems to recognize that the coastal region is also a producer of sugarcane. And in fact, it is deserving of a position on the board, the sugar board, so that the principle of rotation is one that is giving us a voice at the highest level, Mr. Speaker, of sugarcane planning, management of the industry. And Mr. Speaker, this is important because the needs of sugarcane farmers in Kwale, in Tana River, in Lamu, is totally different from the needs of the sugarcane farmers in the other sugarcane catchment areas. And it's important, Mr. Speaker, for our voices to be heard at the highest level. This has not been happening in the past. And I am very happy that this mediated version of the sugar bill is inclusive of this rotational principle. Mr. Speaker,